a few years ago, 2 years ago, we had a pretty bad summer actually. The last 2 years been fabulous summers, sunshine all the way. But 2 years ago, it was a very, very bad year for the weather. Raining all the time. But there was one lovely sunny Sunday morning towards the end of April when this couple from Penzance decided that they'd like to take advantage of the good weather for a change to go out for a nice Sunday morning stroll. And so the missus put the Sunday joint in the automatic oven and everything, and off they went from Penzance out towards the village of Golwell. When they turned back in round the back of Penzance towards St. Maur, when all of a sudden the wife stopped and she looked across the road, and there was a set of Cornish stiles. Now, for those of you that don't know what Cornish stiles is, they're like a sort of granite stepping stones on a public right of way across fields and things like that. Lovely granite stepping stones. And the wife looked at these here granite stiles. She turned to her husband and she said, "Here, my handsome," she said, I never seen their stiles there before. Where do they go to? Now, he, being a crafty sort of Cornishman, and knowing that just up over the hill was the village of Maddern and the King William pub, where the landlord kept a lovely pint of the amber nectar, the husband turned to the wife and he said, "That there, my beauty, that there is a shortcut going all the way through right up so far as Maddern. And 'tis said that at this time of the year, if you're lucky enough, the fields on either side of the footpath are usually carpeted thick with beautiful golden dandelions." He knew that that would turn her on to going that way, because he knew it was coming up to the day, in actual fact, when it's traditional in Cornwall to pick dandelions to make wine. And he said that on this one particular day of the year, if you pick dandelions and make wine from it, it becomes the ideal accompaniment for your Christmas goose. So he knew the time was coming up. And sure enough, she had to go and have a look at these here dandelions. Over the stiles they went, on the little path on the shortcut route up towards Maddern. They went through the fields and up onto the moors, and they'd been on the moors for a while when the husband began to realise that something very strange was happening. He couldn't fathom it out at first, because no matter which way he turned, whatever way he went, he always ended up back at the self-same spot up on the moors up above Penzance. No matter which way he went, he always ended up back at that self-same spot. And he became totally and utterly confused. He didn't know which way to go, what way to turn, or anything. He was totally and absolutely confused. And all to once he heard, not one raucous laughing voice, but simply hundreds of tiny little raucous laughing voices that seemed to come from all the way around him. And he knew at once that they was the Spriggans on the moor. The Spriggans, they're one of our 5 different sorts of little people that we got down in the moor. And they are the mischievous ones. There's nothing that they like better than to lead people astray. Now, we knew they was the Spriggans because he remembered what his grandfather had told him many, many years before when he was a youngster. His grandfather took him aside one day and said, "Now look here, my handsome," he said, "if ever you're up on the moors at all and you've become totally and utterly confused, you don't know which way to go, what way to turn or anything," he said, "and then you hear this here raucous laughing noise going on all the way around you, they, my boy, is the Spriggans on the moor, and you are being pisky led. And the only way to break the spell of being pisky led is to take off your jacket," he said, "and to turn it inside out and to putting up horsey back. And by so doing," his grandfather told him, "soon," he said, "you'll be back where you belong to be." Now, you might be thinking what this chap was thinking at the time started, pretty strange, isn't it? Then he thought to himself, he said, "I tried everything I know. No matter which way I turn, I get nowhere pretty fast. Perhaps I ought to give grandfathers a chance, his advice a go. I ain't got nothing to lose by it, have I?" So off went his jacket, and he turned it inside out, and he put it up towards his back, and there he was, just as his grandfather said he would be. There he was, back where he belonged to be, back on that shortcut path on the route up towards Matter. Now, that lovely sunny Sunday morning 2 years ago, although it had taken them twice as long as normal to get up to Mattern, and it had certainly been gone twice as far as normal, when they arrived up to Mattern, it was just 5 minutes after midday. And being on a Sunday, of course, that meant just one thing only to him at that time. It meant it was just 5 minutes after the opening time of the King William pub. And that lovely pint of the amber nectar he'd been thinking about earlier, well, that went down twice as fast, and it tasted twice as good as it ever had done before. Now, that their story, my goodies, I can tell you, is absolutely true. It's absolutely true. I know. I was that man.
The night we got the goats. We was home the other night, comfortable and all contented, bit of telly and a book, not caring if it snawed or entered. There's a thud, and then a bang. Must be Concord, s'pose, says I. My dear life, the window's shaking, get white face against the sky. Then another, oh my lord, breath is chucking in my throat. Look upon our windowsill, get Big Billy and his goat. Well, we tried to push and pull, phoned the neighbours all around. Nobody could help, it seemed, owner just could not be found. Tried to sleep, but no avail, constant bumping, scrape of hoof. Squint through curtains, they squint back, banded eyes with gaze aloof. 4 o'clock and I'd not blinkered. Next thing John is up about, come on maid, we must do something, gotta get these buggers out. The farmer had a go and foundered. Rang police, RSPCA, our poor garden devastated. What a way to start the day. Tried to coax them, guide them, move them, take them out across the yard. We was skidding on the concrete where they'd left their calling card. Got one tethered down the lane, straight into the field next door. Back home, smiling, turned, oh no. They're back gazing through once more. Raining, pelting, wettest right. Found ourselves a bit more rope. But Miss Nanny, she'd got crafty. To catch her now, there was no hope. Billy was a bit more friendly. Got him down from off the wall. Difficult, because when reared up, he was over 6 foot tall. Inch by inch and cooing gently, got them back into the barn. Bolt the door and turn to go. John's inside, gives out a garn. There, I hear him say, giving them a bit of green. Finally, we squeezed him out. He was something to be seen. Miltman told us of the owners, and they came full of regret. They would take them straight away, hoped that we were not upset. Suppose we were just for a moment. For a while it rocked our goat. It's a night that we'll remember when 2 white faces got our goat.
You've got to tell a story before you sing songs, so I thought I'd better tell you about Ian Bray's brother, because Ian's over there under the exit sign, which is quite appropriate, I thought. And he got a brother that run a pub down, this thing's making all sorts of noises, isn't it? I'll stand back a bit. He got a brother run a pub down round Lizard, and he's called Frank, and Ian? Derek, that's right. I know it to someone like Frank anyway. Seeing that Derek don't run a pub, it don't make no difference to it. Anyway, though, Derek got this pub, and Tom and Harry, they ain't great drinking men at all, really, but they do like to have a couple of half pints on a Sunday, and they walk in at 12 o'clock on the dot. As soon as the doors open, they come in, and they like to have their half pint of beer, see? So, and they always have a pinch of snuff on the bar. There always got to be a dish on the bar with a snuff set for them, see? So this particular Sunday, old Derek said to his missus, "Here, maid," he said, "there's no bloody snuff here." And she said, "Get on, there got to be, just under the stairs." So he said, they're in on their mind. So they both go look underneath the stairs. They couldn't find this tin where the snuff was kept tall. But funnily enough, lying on the floor was an old dried up brown dog's turd. So he took this turd up and carried it into the kitchen, and putting on the cooking board, he took a rolling pin, rolled him around a bit, and he got him down into a fine powder, see? So he said, tell you what, he said, if I was to put E in the tray, they wouldn't know the difference between that and snuff. And she said, get on, you thick-eyed, she said, 'tis far too yellow. She said, snuff's brown. So he said, well, where's the bisto to? So she went away and she got some bisto and mixed the bisto in with this old powdered dog turd, see? They put it in a tray, and right on the dot, there was Tom and Harry at the door trying to get in. Open up, mate, he said. In they comes, eh? And Tom said, have 2 half pints, please, landlord. God, he said, hell. He said, there's a dog performed here on the floor somewhere. So Harry said, well, I can't smell nothing, boy. What are we telling about? He said, well, can he smell nothing? He said, another thing. So they went back and sat down with their half pint of beer, see? He couldn't get it out of his mind. He said, there's round here somewhere. They looked underneath the table, round the chairs, everywhere. Couldn't find a thing. So they cleared up their half pint, and they went back, see? It was Harry's turn to pay. He went back to the bar. He said, fill him up again, landlord. And he went over, had a pinch of snuff. Picked up the 2 half pints. He went back to the table where Tom was. He said, here, Tom, boy, he said, I know what you're telling about now. He said, now that old snuff have cleared me head, I can smell dog shit as well. Sorry about that. I do apologise because I got no talent for telling stories whatsoever, as you observed. But when Joy was talking just now about the Titanic, someone always reminds you of someone else, doesn't it? And we got a couple of fellas up Dullaball who used to go fishing out on the rocks. They was doing it for something like 12 months. They'd been fishing off the rocks and they never caught a single fish. And it become rather urgent because one of them was terminally ill. And he said, I'd love to catch a fish before I die. He was in the pub, see, having a few pints of beer, and he said, I would dearly like to catch a fish. We've been dangling a line here for years, and we haven't caught a single fish. So there was a fella from Port Isaac was listening in, see, and he said, here, I tell you what, you boys, I got a boat. You can go out with me next weekend. I'll take you out in the boat. So he said, oh, that's a proper job. So they went down Port Isaac and got in this boat with their fishing tackle, see. Well, damn it, they'd no sooner got outside the harbour, and there was awful wind blowing up, and the seas was tossing, see, and they was called Kurt and Ken. Ian Bray knows them well. Anyway, Kurt was the one who was terminally ill, and it wasn't very long before Kurt was doing things over the side, you see. Over the side of the boat, he decided that he was going to evacuate his stomach. So he did this for about a half hour, and the boat was tossing around and they found fish. Well, by this time, Kurt was begging for him to go back in Port Isaac, because he said, I've had enough of it, boy. He said, I wish I was dead. So he said, well, we'll go back directly, catch a few fish. You do want to catch a fish or two. So they pulled the fish in, mackerel, 10 to the line, 10 hooks on it, 10 fish every time, see? And Kurt wouldn't have been interested. And Ken was catching the fish like the billio. Well, as soon as they stopped catching fish, Ken went a bit pale, and he said to the skipper of the boat, he said, what do we do when you want to do number 2, to see them? So he said, well, funny you should mention it, but we got an old bucket here. So he brought out a bucket. You know these buckets with the handle that's a bit got a cutting edge to it, so you got a ring of confidence for a couple of days afterwards, where. So, anyway, he sat down on this bucket, where nobody else could see, and he performed on this one, see? Well, he'd half filled the bucket, and he got up. Kurt was still down there half dead, see? He drunk about a gallon and evacuated 2 gallons at Kurt. So Ken got up and he said, well, you know, what do we do with it when you perform in the bucket? So the skipper said, well, thick aid, you wave it over the side, didn't it? Well, see, there's this wind blowing in from the north. And by this time, Kurt was thinking, well, I'm better off than he, because he'd got over it, he evacuated his stomach, he was feeling quite perky now, see? So he stood up and said, what's the matter with you, Ken? Don't he know what's going on? He said, I'm just going to have the bucket over the side a minute. But silly fool have him right off into the teeth of the wind, see? And the wind carried it back, and who do we think it hit in the face? Poor old Kurt. He was half dead already. Sorry about that. That's the end of the story.
McCartney. There must be. He was absolutely wonderful. Wonderful storyteller. So he was here, so I thought, now if I can get Sean to start off, we shall be okay. So I begged Sean to start off. Yes, he agreed. And this was the story he told. He told the story about the priest who had a lady parishioner who came in every day for confession. Now, he didn't mind her coming in every day for confession, but the trouble was thinking of a penance every day. Anyway, one day a stranger came into the church, and the priest said, oh, who are you? So he said, well, I'm an acrobat with the local circus, and the circus is here this week. So the priest said, what do you do? He said, well, I put plates on the floor, and I put my head down, put my legs up in the air, and this is what I do. This is an acrobatic thing, you see. So the priest said, do you think you could do it on the collection plate? So he said yes. So down went the collection plate, down went his head, legs up in the air, and with that, in came the lady parishioner. And she said, oh, feather, feather, don't tell me that's the penance for today, and here I am out without me knickers. And that was the first story that was told of our storytelling, so it really set the scene. And of course, as everybody knows, dialect is, well, it's almost my religion. And I always tell everybody, the first time I realised there was such a thing as dialect, I was a farmer's daughter, broad dialect, taken from my little village school at Mount Hawke, when I was about 7, sent to a girls' school in Truro. Opened my mouth, broad dialect, and the headmistress said, oh, my dear child, we can't have you speaking like that. You must have elocution lessons. Well, I didn't know what she was talking about, so I went home to father and I told him. He said, take no notice of her, dear, I'm paying the bills. So father thought everything Cornish was right, so there was no problem. I don't think mother approved quite as much. I know I was collating all the words we use in Cornwall that we use to bring in the stock on the farm. And I got my mother to introduce me to a farmer friend, and I said to him, could you tell me what word you use to bring in the cows? So he looked at me, he said, oh, goes on. He said, I'd rattle the bucket. And that, of course, is collecting dialect, because Cornish men especially have a vein of imagination running through them that make them marvellous storytellers. And this is what I collect along the way. And of course, a lot of them, you know, some of their stories are a bit facetious. I always think that Cornishmen, you never know what's going to come out next. I said to one the other day, I said, where do you live? He said, well, see they 3 houses over there? I'd live in the middle one. And you know, that is so typically Cornish. Like somebody said, oh, he said, he'd open his mouth for his brains ready for him. I mean, it's a lovely expression. And he don't know enough to know that he don't know nothing. I mean, we all know somebody like that, don't we? And they will come out with these things, which, like somebody said, isn't it funny, he said, how some people to pop off quick, and others to live up to the last minute. And of course, Cornish, you have to be very careful what you say to them. You know, developers are getting a lot of stick lately, aren't they? Well, a developer was going through a Cornish village, so he said to one of the locals, he said, here, my man, have you seen a cartload of monkeys go through the village? So the Cornishman looked out and he said, "How fold off, have he?" Very typical how a Cornishman will react. And of course, you know, we put everything out in the summer and bring it in for winter. And you know Gull Rock out from Portreath there, I mean, been there millions of years. And the tourist who said to the cafe owner, he said, "Excuse me," he said, "has that rock always been out there?" I mean, what a daft question. So the Cornishman looked down, he said, "No," he said, "we to bring it in for winter." And of course, you know, we're very careful with our money in Cornwall, or a bit neary, as we say in dialect. And there are a lot of stories about this. I love the one about the man from Bodmin, married a wife from down St Just. And they're talking about dying. She said, "Look, dear," she said, "when I go, I'd like to be buried down St Just." So he thought for a minute and said, "Well, look, dear," he said, "we'll bury you first in Bodmin. If you don't settle, then we'll move you down to St Just." And of course, it's nice to get a sort of a modern one. Like Jack Thomas died in Truro. And so Mrs. Thomas went down to the West Britain and said, "I want to put this in the obituary column. I only wanted 3 words, Jack Thomas died." So the lady said, "Look, Mrs. Thomas," she said, £6 is the cheapest insertion, and for that you can have 6 words. She said, "Right, Jack Thomas died, Volvo for sale."